Aliens built an inescapable prison, humans laughed and escaped anyway. The galaxy was vast, and the universe teemed with countless civilizations, each more advanced than the last. Yet none could match the cunning of the Zorvans, a race of hyper-intelligent, technology-wielding beings that had conquered the stars for millennia. The Zorvans prided themselves on their ability to design prisons so secure that escape was a mere fantasy. They had perfected the art of containment, creating systems so complex that no mind, however clever, could break free. They had captured many species over the years, each one more resistant, more resourceful than the last, but none had ever escaped. Until now. The Zorvans' latest project was their masterpiece, a facility so advanced it could contain any being, regardless of strength, intelligence, or willpower. They had named it the Vault, located on a barren moon far beyond the reach of any known civilization. It was there that the humans were brought. Dr. Evelyn Tanner, a renowned scientist and expert in human psychology, found herself staring at the cold, steel walls of the vault. Her capture had been swift, a calculated strike by the Zorvans, who had seen her as a threat to their growing influence. She had always known that humanity's capacity for innovation was unmatched, but she had never imagined she'd be subjected to their most secure prison. At first glance, the vault was a marvel of engineering. Its walls were made of a rare metal that was impervious to anything they had encountered before. Every window was a one-way portal, offering no access to the outside world. There were no guards, no physical barriers beyond the invisible force fields that surrounded each section of the prison. The Zorvans had designed it to ensure that no prisoner could even fathom escape, let alone attempt it. But Dr. Tanner was not just any prisoner. She was a human. She knew the stories of humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and unyielding spirit. There were tales of prisoners breaking free from the most secure compounds across the galaxy, of people outsmarting their captors with nothing but sheer willpower and a little creativity. Humans never gave up. Not ever. The first few days were quiet. Dr. Tanner spent her time studying the room, testing its limits, probing for weaknesses. She had seen the signs, the subtle ones. A flicker in the force field here, an anomaly in the temperature there. The Zorvans had underestimated one thing, the human mind. It was then that she laughed. Her laughter echoed against the sterile walls of her cell, loud and unrestrained. At first, it startled her, the sound of it in such a bleak place, but then she laughed harder. She was already planning her escape. The Zorvans watched, their surveillance systems tracking every move, every breath, every smile that crept across her face. They were certain that she, like every other prisoner, would eventually succumb to the overwhelming power of the vault, but they couldn't understand why she wasn't breaking. After all, they had created this prison to be inescapable, not just physically, but mentally too. What they didn't know was that Dr. Tanner wasn't the only human in the vault. There were others, scattered across the facility, each in a different chamber, each trying to do what humans did best, break the rules. Together, they began to communicate. It was subtle at first, coded messages embedded in the simple tasks that the Zorvans had assigned them. A glance here, a tap on the wall there. Slowly, the humans connected the dots. They found the hidden cracks, the vulnerabilities the Zorvans had failed to notice. No matter how secure the walls were, no matter how advanced the technology, there was always room for human ingenuity. Then, the plan began. The night of their escape was quiet, eerily so. The Zorvans, confident in their prison's unyielding strength, had become complacent. The security systems were running on autopilot, the guards resting on their laurels. They had no idea that the prisoners were about to turn their perfect prison into a tomb. Dr. Tanner's group had unlocked the first gate within hours, using nothing more than the basic principles of physics and an old communication device they'd scavenged. A series of electromagnetic pulses had rendered the force fields useless, creating a temporary window of opportunity. They had synchronized their efforts with perfect precision. By the time the Zorvans realized something was wrong, the humans had already escaped their cells, bypassed the security systems, and were on their way to the heart of the vault. The last line of defense was the central control room, a massive chamber that controlled the entire prison. As the humans stormed in, they hacked into the control systems, overriding everything with a simple command, access granted. The vault was no more. When the Zorvans arrived at the scene, they found only silence. The prisoners were gone, leaving behind nothing but a digital trail of their defiance. The most secure prison ever designed had been breached by the unlikeliest of forces, humanity. The Zorvans, in their arrogance, had forgotten one fundamental truth. They had underestimated the human spirit. While their technology was beyond anything the universe had seen, there was something that no machine, no force field, and no prison could ever contain: the relentless will to survive and the boundless creativity that defined humanity. Dr. Tanner and her fellow prisoners didn't just escape, they proved to the Zorvans and the galaxy that no prison was ever truly inescapable. Not for humanity. The Zorvans had learned the hard way that the only true inescapable force in the universe was the will of humankind. And they were going to regret underestimating it. The aftermath. Months passed after the escape, but the Zorvans' obsession with their failure only deepened. They had built the vault to be the ultimate deterrent, a place that would send a message to any who dared challenge their rule. But the message they had hoped to send was twisted into a nightmare of humiliation. The humans' escape had shattered the Zorvans' reputation. No one, no species, had ever broken free from their grasp. Yet the humans had, and they had done it with style, leaving behind nothing but a faint digital fingerprint and a haunting sense of defiance. In the heart of Zorvan-controlled space, the Council of Elders convened. Humanity has proven itself far more resourceful than we ever imagined. Elder Trayvon spoke, his voice tinged with annoyance. We must prepare for the inevitable. Other species will attempt to follow their example. We cannot allow this. Elders Tira, who had overseen the creation of the vault, remained silent. Her face, usually a picture of unwavering confidence, was now drawn and tense. We underestimated them, she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. They escaped in ways we couldn't foresee, Elder Trayvon continued, and that is our fault. But we can't let it go unpunished. We will destroy them. There was a pause in the room. The others shifted uncomfortably, but Trayvon's gaze held steady. The anger in his eyes was palpable. We will find them, hunt them down, and make them pay for this. The universe must understand that the Zorvans are not to be defied. Meanwhile, far away from the high halls of the Zorvan Council, humanity was preparing for what was to come. Dr. Tanner stood before a small group of fellow survivors. They had been scattered across different planets, living in hiding since their escape. The Zorvans were relentless, and the news of humanity's great escape had quickly spread across the galaxy. Some species were already starting to whisper about their own rebellions. Encouraged by the humans' success, the Zorvans, once thought to be unstoppable, were now seen as vulnerable. How long do you think they'll take to find us? One of the humans, a former military strategist, asked. Dr. Tanner, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy, didn't flinch. Not long. The Zorvans are too proud to let this go. They'll hunt us down with everything they have. But we're not the same humans they locked up before, another said. We've learned how to fight back, and if we can escape their best prison, we can outsmart their fleets. Tanner nodded. Exactly. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about showing the galaxy that no one, no empire, no species, can keep humanity down. We have something the Zorvans can't replicate, our will. A flicker of confidence spread through the room. The humans knew that they weren't just fighting for their own freedom anymore. They were fighting for a message, for the future of every species that had ever been oppressed or captured. The Zorvans, still licking their wounds from the humiliation, mobilized. Their best engineers, scientists, and strategists worked day and night to uncover how the humans had breached the vault. But no matter what they discovered, no matter how many systems they analyzed, they could never quite figure out the one thing that had made the humans so unpredictable. It wasn't their technology, it wasn't their strength, it wasn't even their cunning. It was their unrelenting determination. The Zorvans built new prisons, designed new methods of containment, and even created new fleets to hunt down the escaped humans. They threw everything they had at the problem, but with each step, they only seemed to get further from understanding the true nature of the human spirit. It didn't matter how advanced their technology was. They couldn't replicate the core of what made humanity unique, their refusal to be subdued. Months later, Dr. Tanner and her team were gathering intelligence on the Zorvans' new prison systems, looking for weaknesses and cracks. They had been living in the shadows, careful not to draw attention. But they weren't running anymore, they were planning. In a hidden base on the fringe of known space, the humans were preparing a counteroffensive. The same creativity and resourcefulness that had gotten them out of the vault would now be used to strike back at the Zorvans. They had the perfect weapon, information. Dr. Tanner had been working closely with a small group of tech experts, hacking into the Zorvans' communication networks. They had discovered something incredible. There was a flaw in the Zorvan system. It wasn't just that the Zorvans were unable to control humans. The flaw lay in the Zorvans' belief that their technology could outmatch any force. Humanity had no grand fleet, no overwhelming army, no unmatched technology, but they did have the one thing the Zorvans would never understand: the power of a single, relentless individual. One human with a plan could break their systems, could tear through their walls, and, most importantly, could inspire the galaxy to rise up. The day of reckoning arrived when a small human fleet, hidden among a fleet of allied species, appeared within range of the Zorvans' largest space station. The Zorvans' first mistake was assuming they could simply eliminate this small fleet. The second mistake? They underestimated the message that the humans had brought. Instead of retreating, Dr. Tanner and her team broadcasted a single message across the galaxy, directly into the heart of Zorvan-controlled space. It was simple. It was direct. Humanity is free, and we are not alone. The Zorvans scrambled to stop the message, but it was too late. Every ship, every species, every system across the galaxy had heard it. Humanity had broken free, and now, they had ignited the spark of rebellion. The vault had been the Zorvans' greatest triumph, but humanity had turned it into their greatest triumph as well. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The rebellion unleashed. The broadcast reverberated through the galaxy, a ripple in the fabric of the universe. At first, the message seemed like just another declaration. But it wasn't. It was the spark that set off a chain reaction, a chain that would change the course of history. In the outer sectors, the Takori, a race of fierce, warlike traders, were the first to respond. They had been watching the Zorvans from the shadows for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Zorvans' grip on their world was ironclad, but they had always respected humanity's resourcefulness. Now, with the humans breaking free, the Takori saw an opportunity to break the Zorvans' power once and for all. "Do you hear it?" Their leader, Korak, growled as he listened to the human transmission. "The humans, they've shown us it can be done." Soon, other species followed suit. The Lurliths, a race of giant insectoids, long subjugated by Zorvan oppression, began to organize their forces, secretly contacting the humans. The Zorvans' long reign of domination was beginning to crumble as alliances formed between previously feuding races, each united by a single, unshakable truth: if the humans could escape the impossible, then perhaps there was hope for them all. Meanwhile, Dr. Tanner and her team continued their covert operations. They had created a vast underground network, sending encrypted messages between worlds, gathering intelligence, and training operatives. They weren't just fighting for their own survival anymore. They were fighting for a galaxy-wide rebellion. The Zorvans had made one fatal mistake. They had treated humanity like just another conquered species. But they had failed to realize that the very core of humanity was its refusal to be dominated. Its belief that no force, no matter how powerful, was insurmountable. The human network was vast, stretching across several star systems. Their movements were calculated, precise, and most importantly, they were never predictable. Each time the Zorvans tried to stamp out a resistance, humanity adapted. They had learned from their previous escape. No plan was ever truly foolproof. But human adaptability was their greatest weapon. On the Zorvan homeworld, the Council of Elders convened again, but this time, their conversation was different. "They are everywhere," Elders Tira said, her voice strained. "Our forces are stretched too thin. The humans have allies now. The Lurliths, the Takori, even the Ivaz, our once loyal subjects, are turning against us." "Their escape was no fluke," Elder Trayvon said, his tone dark. "Their ability to rally so many, so quickly, it's not just luck, it's their nature. They're unpredictable, relentless." He turned his gaze to the central screen, showing a map of the galaxy. Zorvan fleets, once dominant and feared, were now being outmaneuvered, forced to scatter and retreat. "We have lost control," Trayvon murmured. But the Zorvans had one last card to play, a secret weapon. A doomsday device capable of neutralizing entire star systems. It was an invention of their most brilliant minds. A failsafe in case their empire was ever threatened. The Zorvans had kept it hidden, convinced that no rebellion would ever be powerful enough to challenge their rule. Now, with their backs against the wall, the Zorvans prepared to deploy it. On the human side, Dr. Tanner had sensed the Zorvans' desperation. They had been silent for weeks, but now, there were reports from every corner of the galaxy of a new threat. Unconfirmed rumors spoke of a weapon so devastating that it could obliterate entire planets. Humanity had been underestimated before, but the Zorvans had learned the hard way that this time, it wasn't just about fighting for survival. It was about ending the war before it ended everything. Dr. Tanner met with her top strategists, her mind working at a rapid pace. "We need to locate this weapon before they can use it," she said. "If we don't stop it now, they'll burn everything down with them." They tracked the Zorvans' movements, infiltrating their communication systems, feeding off any scrap of information they could find. The weapon was real, and it was close. "We'll need to strike at the heart of their empire," Tanner said, her voice unwavering. "This isn't just a battle. This is a war for the future of the galaxy." The battle for the Zorvan homeworld began in the shadows. A series of covert strikes designed to weaken the Zorvans before the final confrontation. Humanity led the charge. But they weren't alone. The Takori and the Lurliths fought alongside them. Their forces, a formidable army built from a dozen different species, united by the same cause, freedom. As they neared the Zorvan capital, Dr. Tanner and her team infiltrated the heart of the Zorvan government. They discovered the location of the doomsday weapon, a massive, planet-killer device hidden beneath the capital city's highest tower. Its activation was imminent, and the countdown had already begun. The Zorvans thought they had won, that they could obliterate humanity and their allies in one final, devastating strike. But what they hadn't counted on was the one thing that had always been their greatest weakness, overconfidence. Dr. Tanner and a team of elite operatives infiltrated the tower, bypassing security systems and sabotaging key structures. In the chaos of battle, the humans disabled the device just moments before it could fire, rendering it useless. It was the turning point. The Zorvans' last hope had been crushed. The rebellion reached its zenith as Zorvan fleets began to disband, their commanders surrendering one after another. The human resistance had become a symbol of hope across the galaxy, a movement that transcended species and alliances. Dr. Tanner stood before the vast gathering of species who had once been oppressed, now liberated. The Zorvans' empire was broken. The universe was no longer a place ruled by a single race, but a space where freedom and resilience had triumphed. "We have shown them that no empire, no matter how powerful, can last forever," Dr. Tanner said, her voice ringing with the triumph of their victory. "Humanity's will cannot be broken, and now, the galaxy knows that we are not just survivors, we are free, and so is every being in this universe who dares to stand up for what's right." The Zorvans had learned the ultimate lesson, that no matter how perfect their technology, no matter how advanced their intellect, there was one thing they could never control: the human spirit. And that spirit had changed the galaxy forever. The New Age of Unity. The fall of the Zorvan Empire marked the beginning of a new era. What had once seemed like an impossible rebellion had now reshaped the galaxy itself. Empires that had lived in fear of the Zorvans suddenly found themselves waking up to a world of new possibilities. Species long subjugated under the Zorvan thumb began to find their voice, their agency, and their purpose. The victory was humanity's, yes, but it was the galaxy's triumph, a shared success that united countless beings across planets, systems, and stars. For Dr. Evelyn Tanner, this was the culmination of everything she had fought for. She had gone from being a prisoner, locked in a supposedly inescapable vault, to standing as a leader of the galactic revolution. But her eyes were not on the past, they were on the future. The first council of the newly formed Galactic Assembly met in the aftermath of the fall. Leaders from across the galaxy, now free from the oppression of the Zorvans, sat around a circular table, each with their own motives, cultures, and beliefs. But there was something different in the air. The atmosphere was not one of dominance or submission. It was one of respect, understanding, and, most important of all, cooperation. Dr. Tanner, now recognized as one of the central figures of the rebellion, stood at the head of the table. Her hands rested lightly on the table's edge, a symbol of both her strength and her resolve. "We did it," she said, her voice calm but carrying a weight of authority. "But this is only the beginning." The Zorvans thought their empire could last forever. They thought their technology and might made them invincible. But we proved them wrong. Now, we must build something that will stand the test of time. A murmur of agreement swept through the room. For centuries, the galaxy had been divided into warring factions, fractured by fear, greed, and distrust. The Zorvans had capitalized on these divisions, exploiting the inherent fractures within species, manipulating their desires for power, and holding them under control. The humans' rebellion had not only liberated them but had also shattered the Zorvans' fragile peace, showing that unity could indeed be achieved among such diverse species. One of the leaders, Korak, the Takori general, leaned forward. His massive frame filled the seat, his antennae twitching with curiosity. "Dr. Tanner, you speak of unity. But what about those who still seek power? What of the warlords, the criminals, the tyrants who remain in the dark corners of the galaxy? Do you believe they will accept this new order?" Dr. Tanner met his gaze, unflinching. "No, they won't," she said, "but that's the point. This new order is not about forcing everyone to be the same. It's about giving every species, every individual, the right to choose their own path. And, if they choose to stand in the way of that freedom, we'll confront them, just as we confronted the Zorvans." A ripple of approval spread through the room. "We've seen the strength of human resolve," added Thalia, a Lurlith queen who had fought beside the humans in their victory. "But we must not be blinded by past victories. We must be vigilant. The Zorvans were only the first. There will be others who rise to take their place." Dr. Tanner nodded, understanding the gravity of Thalia's words. "We must rebuild a galaxy where no one species has the power to oppress another, where no one empire can dominate for centuries, as the Zorvans did. We've seen the power of what happens when species unite, when individuals break free of the shackles placed upon them." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "The real challenge is maintaining this unity. The real challenge is ensuring that we never fall into the same patterns that led to the Zorvans' rise. We must set a new example for the galaxy, one built on cooperation, trust, and the belief that every species, every person, has the right to exist without fear." The days that followed saw the formation of the Galactic Union, an alliance not just of governments but of peoples. Representatives from every species now worked together to create a new framework for the galaxy, one where borders were no longer defined by military strength or political influence, but by shared values of liberty, peace, and mutual respect. While the path to true unity would take years, the foundation was laid with one simple truth: the galaxy had seen the potential of what could happen when beings from different worlds, cultures, and histories came together for a common cause. The human resistance had demonstrated that no matter how diverse the galaxy, cooperation was not only possible, it was powerful. In the years that followed, the Zorvans' former territories were slowly rebuilt. Their once immense empire was now a series of smaller, independent systems, each ruled by its people, not by fear. The remnants of the Zorvan fleet, once an unstoppable force, were scattered and neutralized, their influence relegated to history. But it was not the Zorvans who were the focus of Dr. Tanner's attention now. It was the new order that they had created, the new galactic order, where freedom and self-determination were the cornerstones. The first wave of rebuilding involved repairing the damage the Zorvans had done. But the second wave, the most crucial, was about forging relationships between species, fostering trust, and ensuring that this new system would last for millennia to come. And so, Dr. Tanner found herself back at the table, her hands still resting on the smooth surface. But now, her eyes were set on the stars beyond. The galaxy was vast, and there was so much more to do. The struggle for freedom would never truly end. It was a fight that would always need defenders. But for now, there was peace, a fragile, beautiful peace built on the sweat, blood, and sacrifice of countless beings, human and non-human alike. "Remember," Dr. Tanner said, her voice steady, "the victory was not in escaping a prison. The victory was in making sure no one ever has to live in a cage again." The council fell silent, and then, slowly, One by one, they all nodded in agreement. The galaxy had been freed. And together, they would make sure it stayed that way. In the years that followed, the once prisoners, the humans, continued to lead the charge, not just in military or strategic might, but in diplomacy, exploration, and fostering the bonds between races. The legacy of humanity's triumph, of their unyielding will to be free, became the guiding principle of the new galactic order. The galaxy had learned a simple but profound lesson: freedom wasn't a gift, it was a right, and as long as humanity existed, no one would ever forget that again. The humans had shown the galaxy what was possible when the impossible was challenged, and in doing so, they had rewritten the future for all species, one where the stars no longer held the promise of domination, but of hope. The new frontier. As the years passed, the galaxy began to heal. The Zorvan Empire, once a titan of tyranny and fear, was now a fractured memory, though its legacy of oppression would not be forgotten. The struggle to rebuild was not without challenges, but the victories of the past had proven that no force, however mighty, could withstand the united will of a free galaxy. Humanity's spirit had ignited the flames of hope, and now it was time for everyone to carry that light forward. Dr. Evelyn Tanner, now a respected leader in the Galactic Union, stood at the helm of a new mission, a mission that would go beyond the borders of known space. The galaxy was still filled with unexplored frontiers, and humanity, along with their allies, was ready to chart a course into the unknown. Everyone here has seen what we can do together, Dr. Tanner said during a meeting with the leaders of the Galactic Union. Her voice was calm, steady, but carried an undeniable authority. But this galaxy is vast, and it's time for us to push beyond what we've ever known. The room was filled with representatives from every major species: the Takori, the Lurliths, the Ivaz, and many others. All of them sat in the large council hall, listening intently. The collective determination in the room was palpable. We've built a foundation, but now we must turn our gaze outward, Tanner continued. There are new worlds out there, and they are waiting to be discovered. We don't know what lies beyond our current reach, but we must prepare to face whatever challenges it brings. The mission wasn't simply about exploration. It was about ensuring that the galaxy remained free, no matter how far into the stars they ventured. The Zorvans had taught them one valuable lesson: as long as the galaxy was divided, there would always be those who sought to exploit it. The knowledge they had gained from the defeat of the Zorvans would serve as a beacon, guiding them as they ventured into unknown space. A leader from the Ivaz, a species known for their advanced navigational technology, stood up. Dr. Tanner, we agree. It is time to expand, to venture into the unknown. But we must not forget the lessons of the past. We need safeguards in place, both for defense and for diplomacy. There are still rogue elements out there who might challenge the peace we've worked so hard to build. Absolutely, Tanner responded. This is why this mission will be different from all that have come before. It will be a joint effort: science, diplomacy, defense, and exploration, all rolled into one. Together, we will establish outposts, foster relationships with new species, and defend the values we've fought so hard to protect. The conversation turned toward the specifics: constructing ships capable of handling the unknown, creating teams of diverse individuals who could represent the best of each species, and designing technology that could protect them in the uncharted regions of space. This wasn't a war, at least, not one that they hoped to fight, but it was a venture into a realm that would require every ounce of wisdom, cooperation, and ingenuity they had. Months later, the first exploratory fleet was ready to embark on its journey. Humanity, alongside their allies, had created a new class of starship, a ship that would be both a symbol of their newfound unity and a practical tool for their missions. Named Unity, it was a ship designed to embody the ideals they had fought for. Equipped with cutting-edge technology and reinforced by the strength of multiple species, it would carry them into deep space. As the crew gathered on the Unity, Dr. Tanner stood before them once again. Her face was lined with the weight of leadership, but her resolve was as unshakable as it had been in the darkest days of their struggle. Remember, she said, her voice echoing through the ship's command deck, we are not just explorers, we are the torchbearers of freedom. Every decision we make, every step we take, is a chance to prove that the future belongs to those who choose to stand together. She paused, allowing the gravity of her words to sink in. We are not going into this alone. We will make new allies. We will face unknown dangers. And we will come across challenges that we cannot predict. But no matter what happens, we will hold on to one thing above all, the belief that freedom is a right. And it is a right that cannot be taken from us. The crew stood in silence for a moment, the weight of history pressing down on them. They were the first wave, the pioneers who would forge a new path, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. And with that, the Unity powered up, and its engines hummed to life. The stars awaited them. As the Unity left the orbit of their homeworld, a sense of both awe and trepidation filled the hearts of the crew. They were venturing into the vast expanse of space where no one knew what lay beyond the edges of known maps. But what they did know was that they had already made history. Beyond the edges of known space lay possibilities, new civilizations, strange technologies, and perhaps even remnants of ancient empires long forgotten. Humanity had already shown the galaxy that they could overcome the greatest of odds. Now, they would show that they could build a lasting peace and protect it, wherever it might be threatened. The first few weeks were filled with exploration. The ship passed through nebulae and discovered uncharted moons. They encountered new species, some of whom had never before made contact with other sentient beings, and they negotiated peaceful terms with these alien races, exchanging knowledge and resources. Humanity's reputation, already growing, was enhanced by these early successes. But soon, they encountered their first true challenge. A strange, hostile force appeared at the fringes of their exploration zone. It was a race of beings unlike any they had encountered before, inhospitable, aggressive, and determined to drive the humans and their allies away. Despite their advanced technology and superior numbers, the crew of the Unity faced them head-on, combining their collective strengths and working in unison to overcome the threat. It was a battle, but it was also a statement. The galaxy would not allow the darkness of oppression to return. Even in the face of danger, the new alliance stood together, showing that the lessons of the past had been learned. Dr. Tanner stood on the bridge, watching the stars outside. The galaxy was vast, but no longer was it a place of fear. It was a place of opportunity, hope, and the unbreakable will to survive, adapt, and thrive. And as the Unity continued to venture deeper into the unknown, Dr. Tanner knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. The galaxy had been freed once. Now, they would ensure that no one could ever threaten that freedom again. The shadows beyond. The crew of the Unity had barely scratched the surface of the galaxy's mysteries. And yet, the challenges that lay ahead were becoming ever more apparent. The aggressive species they had faced at the edge of known space, the first true test of their united strength, were not the only unknown threat lurking in the depths. The further they ventured into uncharted space, the more they began to uncover the subtle and pervasive forces that threatened not just their alliance but the very fabric of their shared peace. In the months following their initial forays into the unexplored sectors, Dr. Tanner and her team had made remarkable progress. New civilizations were found, some peaceful and eager to join the growing coalition of free worlds, others more suspicious of these newcomers. However, a darker, more insidious presence loomed over their journey. The remnants of ancient empires and long-forgotten powers, buried deep within the void. They had come across what appeared to be ruins on a dead planet in a star system far from the beaten path. Towering monoliths, vast and cold, stood as silent sentinels, their carvings indecipherable. Yet, there was something ominous about them, as if the very air around the planet whispered secrets of forgotten ages. This discovery, both wondrous and unsettling, left the crew on edge. Dr. Tanner stood in the briefing room, reviewing the data they had gathered from their latest mission. The eerie remnants they had uncovered on the dead world were troubling, and the crew was still piecing together what they had encountered. But it wasn't just the ruins that concerned Tanner. It was the strange energy signatures they had detected, flickering on their scanners, deep in the shadows of space. "We are not alone," Tanner said quietly, to herself more than anyone else. Her mind whirred as she processed the implications of their recent findings. The ancient ruins had been left undisturbed for millennia, but it seemed they had been waiting for something, or someone, to find them. The holographic map displayed before her showed the trajectory of their current course, a path that would lead them even deeper into unknown space. The energy signatures they had detected were coming from a region far beyond where any ship had traveled before. The Unity had barely navigated past the remnants of the Zorvan Empire, and now, they were entering territory where no records existed, no prior knowledge or encounters. As she gathered her thoughts, the doors to the briefing room slid open. Commander Lysandra, the human representative of the Unity's military division, entered with a concerned expression. "Dr. Tanner," she said, stepping forward, the crew's growing uneasy. "Those energy readings we picked up on the last mission are increasing. They're getting stronger, more concentrated. We've never seen anything like it before." Tanner looked at her for a moment, feeling the weight of the growing tension. "I know," she replied. "It's the unknown that's the most dangerous, but we can't turn back now. We have to know what's out there." "Agreed," Lysandra responded, though her voice betrayed her uncertainty. "But we need to be prepared. If this is something like the Zorvans, something with the power to challenge everything we've built, we need to have a strategy." Tanner nodded slowly. "I'll call a council meeting. We need to get everyone on the same page. Whatever this is, we have to approach it as a united front. We can't afford to be divided now." As the Unity continued on its course, the council convened in an emergency meeting. The room was filled with representatives from all the species involved in the Galactic Union: humans, Takori, Lurliths, Ivaz, and others. Each one had a voice in what would come next. But Dr. Tanner's presence carried the authority of one who had not only led them through rebellion but now steered them through the uncertainty of an ever-changing galaxy. The conversation began with reports from the various science and military divisions, each one more concerning than the last. The energy signatures they had been tracking had shifted, coalescing into what appeared to be an enormous artificial structure, a structure that seemed to be growing, as if it were waking up from a long slumber. "We've detected a massive object," Dr. Tanner began, standing at the head of the table, her eyes scanning the gathered leaders. "It's located in a region where no known civilizations have ever been. It's immense, and its energy readings are unlike anything we've encountered. We believe it may be the remains of an ancient empire. But if it's still active..." Her voice trailed off, as the implications hit everyone in the room. An ancient force, powerful enough to send such energy readings across the galaxy, could mean one thing: they were walking into the very heart of something far older, far more dangerous than anything they had faced before. "The question is," Lysandra spoke up, "how long has it been there? And why hasn't it been discovered before?" "That's what we intend to find out," Tanner said, her voice firm. "We can't be sure if this is a threat or an opportunity, but we're going to investigate. I want a full analysis, and I want to be ready for anything. We need all hands on deck for this one." The Unity adjusted course, heading toward the dark region of space where the structure had been located. The ship's sensors began to pick up increasing interference, their usual high-tech scanning systems struggling to penetrate the dense void surrounding the object. It was as if the structure was intentionally cloaking itself, hiding from detection, forcing them to come closer before it revealed its true nature. "Prepare for entry into the unknown," Dr. Tanner said, her voice resolute. "No matter what we find, we must stay united. We must be careful, but we must also be bold. This is not just about surviving, it's about understanding what came before us, and how it can shape our future." The Unity drew closer to the structure, and soon, a massive, towering formation began to appear on the viewscreen. It was as if the very stars themselves had been blotted out by the size of it, a colossal, angular form stretching across multiple light years. Its surface was covered in patterns and symbols, intricate and ancient. This was no ordinary relic. It was a remnant of a civilization so advanced, it seemed almost beyond comprehension. But there was something more, something that felt wrong. A deep, resonating hum filled the air. The ship's systems began to flicker, and Dr. Tanner felt a cold shiver run down her spine. They were no longer alone. Something had awakened within the heart of that ancient structure, and it was reaching out. A presence, a consciousness, perhaps, stirred in the void, as if it had sensed the arrival of the Unity. The message was clear, though it wasn't one they could hear with their ears. It was a pulse, a warning, a challenge, radiating through the space around them. The galaxy had seen the triumph of the human spirit, but now, it was about to face its greatest test yet. The Unity had crossed into the shadow of an ancient, forgotten power, and nothing would ever be the same again.